Story 1. It started with a sound, a faint, haunting lullaby drifting through the air of an empty house. At first, I thought it was the wind, but when I followed the melody, I realized it was coming from inside my grandmother's locked cabinet, the one no one had opened in over 30 years. Let's start. My name's Daniel, and 3 weeks ago, I inherited my grandmother's house after her passing. It was a small, old-fashioned place at the edge of a quiet town in Maine, the kind of house that seemed to hum with memories. The air always smelled faintly of dust and lavender, and every step on the wooden floorboards echoed like a whisper from the past. When I moved in, I didn't expect much, just an old home filled with old things. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I kept hearing small noises at night, things shifting, light footsteps in the hallway, and once, the faint tinkling sound of a music box playing somewhere deep in the house. I first heard it the night after the funeral. It was around 2 a.m. I was lying in bed, half asleep, when that melody began. Slow, delicate notes, the kind that might lull a child to sleep, but there was something wrong about it. The tune kept faltering, warping slightly, like it didn't want to end. I got up and followed the sound through the dark hallway. The house creaked under my feet. When I reached the living room, it was gone, just silence. I stood there for a long time, waiting, listening. Then, click. A small metallic sound came from behind me. I turned around, and the cabinet door, the one that was always locked, was slightly open. Inside, nestled among old photo albums and yellowed letters, was a small, ornate music box. Gold edges, cracked porcelain ballerina on top, and a key sticking out of the side. It looked expensive, ancient. But what unsettled me most was that it was still turning. The key was slowly unwinding, though I hadn't touched it. I closed the cabinet and went back to bed, convincing myself that I was just tired, maybe imagining things. But the next morning, the box was on the kitchen table. No one else lived in the house. I remember staring at it, my coffee cooling in my hands. The ballerina's arm was missing, and her face had a thin crack running across it, right through one of her eyes. Something about that broken face staring blankly into mine made me uneasy. I picked up, turned it over, and saw a name carved into the bottom. Eleanor, my grandmother's name. That day, I called my mother to ask about it. She went silent when I mentioned the box. Finally, she said, "Your grandmother never wanted anyone to touch that thing, Daniel. Just leave it alone." I pressed her, but she wouldn't say more. Only one last warning before hanging up. "If you ever hear it playing again, don't follow it." That night, the music returned. This time, I tried to ignore it. I turned up the TV, shut my bedroom door, and forced myself to stay in bed. But the song grew louder, closer. The melody seeped through the walls until it sounded like it was right outside my door. Then, the door handle began to move. I froze. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. The handle turned, but the door didn't open. After a few seconds, the sound stopped, and the music faded away. The next morning, I found the music box sitting just outside my door. The ballerina had shifted positions, her head now tilted up, her cracked face staring directly at me. That was when I decided to get rid of it. I took it to an antique shop in town. The old man who ran the place looked uneasy the moment he saw it. He didn't even touch it, just stared at it like it was something foul. "Where did you get this?" he asked. I told him about my grandmother. He nodded slowly, then whispered, "She used to come here years ago, tried to sell this very box, but when I told her I couldn't take it, she got hysterical, said it belonged to her daughter, said it wouldn't let go." Her daughter, my mother. I left the shop with chills crawling down my spine. When I got home, the box was already sitting on my kitchen table again. I swear I had left it in my car, locked in the trunk, but there it was. Same position, same tilted ballerina. That night, I stayed awake. Around 1 a.m., the melody began again, softer than before, almost coaxing me. I grabbed the box, ran outside, and threw it into the river behind the house. I watched it sink beneath the dark water, feeling a strange relief. When I turned to go back inside, I heard it, muffled, underwater, the song still playing. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I woke up to find muddy footprints on the stairs. Small footprints, like those of a child, leading from the back door up to my room. At the end of the trail, on my nightstand, sat the music box, wet, muddy, and still playing. That was when I finally called my mother again. She broke down crying. Between sobs, she told me the truth. When she was a child, my grandmother had a daughter before her, Eleanor's first child, a little girl named Grace. Grace had loved music boxes, and that one was her favorite. But one night, when my grandmother came home, she found the box still turning and Grace lying cold beside it. No one knew what happened. The police ruled it an accident, but my grandmother swore the box had something to do with it. She locked it away and forbade anyone to touch it. My mother said she thought the thing was cursed, that it kept the soul of whoever wound it next. I didn't believe in curses, but then, the next night, I heard a soft humming from the hallway, a child's voice, singing along with the melody. I stepped out and saw her, a little girl standing in the dark, dripping wet, hair clinging to her face. Her pale fingers clutched the music box, and her lips moved as the tune played. She looked up at me, and in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "You shouldn't have thrown it away." I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. She walked toward me, each step slow and deliberate. The song grew louder, then silence. When I woke up, it was morning. I was on the floor of the hallway. The music box was gone. For days, everything was quiet again. I started to think maybe it was all some strange nightmare, until I went to the mailbox one afternoon and found a small brown package addressed to me with no return name. Inside, wrapped carefully in newspaper, was the music box, and underneath it, a note. Written in shaky handwriting, "You wound it, Daniel. Now it belongs to you." Since then, it plays every night at exactly 2 a.m. I've tried smashing it, burning it, burying it, nothing works. It always comes back. Sometimes, I hear small footsteps in the hall before it starts playing. Sometimes, I see her reflection in the mirror, that same wet-haired girl, humming to the melody. Last night, I heard something new. 2 voices singing this time. My grandmother's voice joined hers. I don't know how much longer I can stand it. The song plays louder every night, echoing through every room until it feels like it's inside my head. I tried leaving the house, but every time I drive away, the music starts playing from the car's speakers. It's 1:59 a.m. now. I can already hear the faint sound of the key turning itself. If anyone finds this recording, please, don't open the cabinet in my grandmother's house. And if you ever hear that song, don't listen. Because once the music starts, it never stops. Story 2. I woke up that night to the sound of music coming from the attic. A slow, eerie lullaby that I'd never heard before. The strange part, I live alone. Let's start. My name is Emily, and 2 months ago, I moved into my late aunt's house after she passed away. She had no children, and the will left everything to me, including the creaky, century-old house she'd lived in her entire life. People in town always whispered about her being strange, but I just thought they were being cruel to an old woman who preferred solitude. The house itself was beautiful in a haunting way. High ceilings, narrow hallways, stained glass windows that painted red and blue patterns on the floors when the sun hit them. But it was the attic that felt different. From the first day, I sensed something up there. A chill, a weight in the air, like someone was watching me from the shadows above the ceiling. Aunt Margaret's belongings were still scattered around when I moved in. Old paintings, letters, boxes of trinkets. I spent the first week cleaning, sorting through her things, and trying to make the house feel like mine. But no matter how much I cleaned, that attic door at the end of the upstairs hall kept drawing my eyes. The night it began, I was reading in bed when I heard it, a faint tinkling sound, like the notes of a music box echoing through the vents. At first, I thought it was my imagination, but the melody continued, soft, deliberate, repeating the same haunting pattern. I followed the sound through the hallway, up the narrow staircase to the attic. Every step groaned beneath my feet. The music grew louder, clearer, almost sweet, but there was something wrong in the tune, like a song slightly out of tune, familiar but broken. The attic door creaked open, cold air spilled out, and there it was, a small, ornate music box sitting on an old rocking chair in the middle of the dusty room. Its lid was open, the tiny ballerina twirling gracefully, even though no one had wound it. I remember whispering to myself, "How are you playing?" before I reached out and closed the lid. The moment I did, the room fell dead silent. I turned to leave, and the rocking chair began to move. Slowly, back and forth, back and forth. I ran downstairs and didn't go back up that night. The next morning, I convinced myself it must have been my nerves. I had been tired, grieving, overwhelmed, but later that day, when I passed the attic door, I heard something new, a faint knocking sound from the other side. I opened the door quickly. Nothing, just that same chair and the box sitting closed. That evening, I called my mom. She went quiet when I mentioned the music box. "Don't touch it," she said quickly. "Your Aunt Margaret used to say, that thing plays by itself. She got it from your grandmother, and she hated it. She tried throwing it away, but it always came back. Emily, don't wind it, ever." I tried to laugh it off, but my mom's voice shook. I promised I'd be careful. That night, the song returned, louder this time. It woke me from a dream, the same melody echoing through the walls, but this time it sounded closer. I sat up and realized it wasn't coming from the attic anymore. It was coming from my bedroom. The box was sitting on my dresser, lid open, ballerina spinning. I froze. I hadn't brought it down. Then, just as I was about to move, the ballerina stopped mid-spin. The tune slowed, dragged, and then reversed. The melody began to play backward, creating a twisted, grating sound that made my stomach turn. I grabbed it, slammed it shut, and ran downstairs, heart pounding. I left it on the kitchen counter and locked myself in my room. I could still hear it faintly through the floor. The next day, I took it out to the backyard and smashed it with a hammer. The porcelain ballerina shattered, the gears bent. I buried the pieces in the garden, deep enough that I'd never see them again. That night was the first peaceful sleep I'd had in days. Until 2:47 a.m., the music returned. I sat up, trembling, and listened. The same lullaby, softer, but steady. It wasn't coming from upstairs this time. It was coming from underneath my bed. When I looked, there it was, perfectly whole, clean, not a single crack on it. The ballerina was spinning again. I screamed and threw it across the room, but it didn't stop. The tune grew distorted, faster, almost mocking me. And then I heard it, a faint voice beneath the music. A woman's whisper, "Don't bury me again." That was the first night I saw her. A pale figure standing at the foot of my bed. Long gray dress, eyes hollow and dark, hair hanging over her face. Her hands were trembling, and in one of them, she held the broken ballerina figure from before. She tilted her head and whispered, "You shouldn't have stopped the song." The room went black. When I came to, it was morning. The box was gone, but there was dirt on my sheets. My hands were covered in soil. Out in the garden, the hole I'd dug the night before was empty. I didn't know what to do. I thought about leaving the house, But every time I packed, something stopped me. Like the air itself grew heavier, pushing me back. I started to notice other things too. The humming. Sometimes I'd be in the kitchen and hear someone humming that same lullaby softly behind me. When I turned, no one was there. My reflection in the window would move just a little too late. Then one evening, I found a letter in the attic. It was from my grandmother to my aunt. The handwriting was shaky and faded, but one line stood out. It's her song, Margaret. She won't rest until it finishes. I never found out who she was until last week. A neighbor came by, an older man who'd lived down the street for 40 years. When he heard I was staying in the house, his face went pale. "That box," he said quietly, "that belonged to the woman who lived there before your aunt. She had a daughter, a little girl who loved to dance. The girl died young, maybe 7 or 8, drowned in the pond out back. The mother used to play that box every night at her grave. Then one day, she disappeared too. Your aunt moved in after that." My blood ran cold. That night, I stood at the pond's edge. The moon reflected perfectly off the water. I swear, I heard the faint sound of music coming from beneath the surface. I turned to go back inside, and the box was waiting on the porch. There was a note tied to it this time. It said, "Finish her song." I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Around 3 a.m., the music started again, even though the lid was closed. I tried to cover my ears, but it felt like the sound was inside my head. I could hear footsteps in the hall, small, light, like a child's. The door creaked open, and there she was again, dripping wet. The ballerina figure clutched in her little hand. She walked up to the dresser and placed it next to the music box. Then she turned to me. Her lips moved, but the voice came from everywhere at once. "Now it's your turn to dance." The next thing I remember is waking up in the attic, standing in front of the rocking chair. The box was open, the ballerina was gone, and I was spinning. I couldn't move. My arms and legs twisted, my head tilted unnaturally, like I was part of the music box. The song played endlessly, and every time I tried to scream, the melody drowned it out. If anyone finds this recording, please listen to me carefully. Don't play the song. Don't open the lid. Because once it starts, it doesn't stop. And if you break it, you take her place. The end.